The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I give thanks to God for this opportunity to once again be in the Parliament of the Bahamas to echo the sentiments, the dreams, and aspirations of the people of Marco City and by extension, Bahamians across the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Madam Speaker, as we meet, many families in the Bahamas grieve because of the loss of loved ones, some very recent. Madam Speaker, each weekend, members in this place join others in attending funeral services to pay tribute to persons who've made an incredible contribution to this country. Just this past weekend, Madam Speaker, it was difficult but necessary to grieve with the families of Rudolph Rigby and Selena Roll. It was especially touching to look at Selena's 4-year-old child, Saint. But thank God for the extended family that continue to undergird so many Bahamians who grieve, but fortunately many are not grieving without hope. I extend condolences, Madam Speaker, to Linda Camp and Mr. Camp and the entire family on the passing of Crystal James. And to the family who I had an opportunity to speak with of Colin Edgecombe. And recent deaths in Marco City, Madam Speaker, of Wade Stirrup, young man, 41, Clyde Hepburn, and Linda Dossett Riley. Every time you think you're healing from one death, Madam Speaker, there is another. And soon to funeralize my nephew, murdered a few weeks ago. It is our understanding this morning that someone would be charged. But sadly, we know, given what is happening in this society, more families would grieve. We have a lot of work to do. Madam Speaker, today's bill that we discuss is but one additional contribution to the work that all of us must do. The truth is, the things that we fight are full-time. Most of the vices that some of our children have, or the social challenges that we face as a community, have a whole lot of part-time workers for full-time problems. So if it's the issue of feeding, we have a handful of folks, but many hungry mouths to feed. Madam Speaker, that is why it is critical that in non-traditional areas we ought to employ persons so we have an army that every day they know it's their assignment to go out and plug the gaps, because government does not have sufficient resources to address the varied needs that we face in the Bahamas. And that is why I support social entrepreneurship, which is why not-for-profit organizations formation is important. Our country, successive administrations have failed the Bahamian people in the way in which we have moved so slowly to enable nonprofits to be registered, to access funds locally and internationally, and where the donors can, through tax write-offs in many instances, benefit from contributing to these types of organizations. I ran a nonprofit when it was in Nassau. It was called Law, Light and Water. And the view was everybody deserved a right to light and water. And that's precisely why when I lived in Fox Hill, the corners that I lived in and the adjacent corners, there were no homes that we were not prepared to dig a septic tank, build a septic tank, add the infrastructure for plumbing. And we did that house after house after house, and to put in the infrastructure for light. And we benefited from contributions from Bahamians from all walks of life, people on both sides of the political divide contributing to transforming people's lives. When I moved to Grand Bahama, it changed to lawn, light and water now, because there's even a greater sense of urgency. And it is not just in communities like Fox Hill or communities like Centerville or in the Family Islands, where there's an absence in some cases of potable water or plumbing facilities. It's in some of the developed communities where we don't know the condition of people, that the bathroom stopped working months and months ago. And so many of our citizens, our brothers and sisters, they come to the marketplace for work, and they come from a wiping situation, an absence of light, and in the midst of this heat, so many people lack electricity to even give them a chance if they could afford air condition or a fan. So, Madam Speaker, the role of persons who would add value, who would contribute to the lives of those who are less fortunate, their role is even more important. And so this bill, the Governor General's Volunteer Society Bill, is a critical bill that marshals the good faith of Bahamians so that they could come and contribute to organizations, community projects, and individuals who need help but cannot afford to pay for it. Madam Speaker, the member for Centerville is the offspring of a gentleman who played a pivotal role in this regard, who was a part of that cadre of Bahamians who thought that it would be wonderful to organize the fundraising initiative so that the same organizations do not keep petitioning the same group of donors. And so the goal was, and people like Ed Fields and Phil Simon and so many others played a role in trying to get corporate Bahamas to fund an agency that could funnel funds to various non-profits, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, before I come to an important issue, and I hope the minister would remain, but Madam Speaker, volunteerism is extremely, Madam Speaker, important in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and the government should do all it can to help facilitate it. And so today, Madam Speaker, we intend to support this piece of legislation. And I know the member for Nassau Village may not be aware, but both administrations have taken a stab at forming societies exactly like this. In 1997, working with the Honorable Shivago Lang, we formed Volunteers 2000. And the goal, again, was to mobilize thousands of Bahamians who could contribute to organizations, community initiatives, and individuals who needed help, Madam Speaker. And so, Madam Speaker, in supporting this bill, a very short bill for the public to digest, I just wish to leave a couple of very quick suggestions that the government may wish to take on. The bill, Madam Speaker, we believe will move the process forward in engendering this spirit that we must give back. We must pay it forward. Madam Speaker, but a couple of things are important. We should look, Madam Speaker, in the execution of this, in enlisting, like the young man who was just here, celebrity figures and others who can be spokespersons for this program, who can encourage others to volunteer their time. But there is a need, Madam Speaker, to vet volunteers. The last thing you want is for persons to volunteer to work with groups to whom they may be a risk. And so the volunteer program should have a robust vetting program to determine suitability of those who volunteer. Secondly, Madam Speaker, there is a need to train volunteers, because a willingness to help is one thing, ability to do so is entirely different. So having a robust curriculum in order to make sure we workshop our volunteers. And then, of course, Madam Speaker, the fourth thing is there is a need to look at indemnifying those persons. Sometimes people are volunteering and some unintended things can happen, not through malice or bad behavior, etc. And so if people are going to volunteer their service, the last thing they need to be thinking about is if they're carrying a hot plate of food and it's spilled on somebody that they're being sued for. So to indemnify, to protect those who are acting in good faith and not out of negligence. And then, of course, Madam Speaker, it would be useful to create a solid database of all volunteer organizations, all persons who wish to volunteer, and then, of course, to put them in categories based on their skills and areas of interest to farm them out to help communities, organizations, and individuals. So, Madam Speaker, the Governor General's Volunteer Society Bill, we encourage all of those in the past who have contributed. This is not anything unique to the Progressive Liberal Party. Progressive Liberal Party, like the Free National Movement and countless other organizations, are committed to this. And in fact, Madam Speaker, that's why we have to take this tribalism out of this talk, because I sat here and listened to the member for Cat Island, Rumkey in San Salvador, Madam Speaker. in seeking to do his job, which is to hold persons accountable who receive public money, unwittingly savage those who were involved in the food program, many of whom had nothing to do with mis or malfeasance, did absolutely nothing wrong. But here's an entire community of volunteers, in many instances, who always volunteered, a cloud was left over their head, quite possibly for the actions of maybe one or two, and we are still waiting to see exactly who they are, Madam Speaker. And so it's important that as we celebrate people who contribute, who plug the gaps that exist because of the inadequacy of government, no matter the color, it is important not to savage an entire community, and that is a fundamental error. And in terms of the mention of Dorian, I've said I believe that in some instances we could have moved faster, which reminds me, after Matthew, the PLP could have moved faster. Madam Speaker, we share joint responsibility for not adhering to the simple principle of urgency when people are suffering. Madam Speaker, which brings me to another matter, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we are in the midst, Madam Speaker, of a very difficult time in the country on multiple levels. Many Bahamians, right now, as we are in this partially cool House of Assembly, many people are hot in their homes, on their porches in this community. Climate change is real. That's why Bahamians, both parties have been on the international scene raising the case of the climate crisis we face. But it's hot. And it's even hotter when you have a dysfunctional utility company, or when you have people power that's off, because unfortunately the cost is extremely high. In this administration, the Davis says increase is in part, in large measure, responsible, Madam.
The chair
Madam
recognizes
Speaker.
the honourable member for West Cranber, Harmon and Bimini.
Whilst we will not interfere with the member from Marco and his contribution, and the fact that I'm aware that he'd wish to speak about climate change, I think, Madam Speaker, relevance is important here today. And we want to make sure, Madam Speaker, that the member does not drift off into another subject matter that's not before the House today. But what's before the House is a Governor General's bill.
Thank you, honourable member, and I fully agree with that.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, while we are here, there is a need for volunteers to take water to those hot Bahamians who are struggling under the heat out there on this road. The communities I come from, where I have lived, they need volunteers right now, to take water to them, an oscillating fan, or maybe from your constituency allowance, a split unit, so that they could fight this heat, Madam Speaker. We need volunteers. Volunteers, Madam Speaker, on the select committee to address all matters related to immigration. Bahamians with impeccable reputation to work alongside the government of the Bahamas to address the varied issues related to immigration. Madam Speaker, just for the few minutes I have remaining, Madam Speaker, let me quickly say this. Yesterday, Madam Speaker, while preparing for this bill, the Governor General's Volunteer Society bill, I happened to see, Madam Speaker, a news clip talking about irregularities that the member for Carmichael, detected and therefore remedied as it relates to Chinese illegal workers, Madam Speaker, at the British Colonial Hotel, Madam Speaker.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for West Cranber, Harmon and Bimini.
The member from Marco fully appreciates the rules of the House. There are times when our side allows for the latitude and times when our members engage. The member, Madam Speaker, yes, and I'm talking about our team. I'm talking about our team. We're talking about our team. But you are to be relevant, Madam Speaker.
Indeed.
And Madam Speaker, we're asking you to ensure that the member is relevant. He's not going to, as he usually seeks to, he wants to drift all over the place. We're not talking about certain matters today. We're dealing with this bill.
Yes.
And the relevance is the Governor General's bill this morning.
Madam Speaker, let
Honorable
me
member,
say,
I'm asking you to please stay on.
Madam Speaker, I have at
Please stay on cue.
least 12 more minutes, and I intend to address matters of national importance. Madam Speaker, you do not have the ability to muzzle me.
Honorable members,
Madam
honorable
Speaker, Madam Speaker, the member
Honorable
for
members, we are
Carmichael,
in
Madam
debate.
Speaker, the member.
Yes. Honorable members, we are in debate.
Madam Speaker, the
are in debate.
member for Carmichael, Madam Speaker,
And
talked about irregularities.
What is that?
The member,
I said the rules are not mandatory. That was the position of government in the last sitting. And
Asheran, you, time, it stopped? It stopped?
Sit down.
Except asking the chair to
They're mandatory all
ensure
the
that the
time.
rules are enforced.
Who's you? Be careful now.
Madam Speaker, the government of the Bahamas, Department of Immigration website, Madam Speaker, reads, work permit new, non-Bahamian nationals
Honorable member,
who are
let us stay on course.
of working
Let us
and
stay on
living
course.
in the Bahamas.
Honorable member, honorable members, honorable member from Marco City.
By way of a valid permit issued by the Department of Immigration.
Honorable member,
To work for up to 90 days must apply for a short
rules for one side and rules for the side.
must apply for a short-term work permit.
Honorable member from Marco City,
Yes, Madam Speaker. Yes, Madam Speaker.
please
Madam Speaker.
adhere to the chair.
No, I am adhering, Madam Speaker. I am adhering. I have a right, Madam Speaker, for
Honorable member,
a portion of my contribution
Honorable member,
to address matters of national importance. I
have never stripped any member the opportunity to speak in this place. But now, honorable member, allow me to speak. These members, you all take full advantage and coming to this place and disgracing the floor by speaking on whatever you want to speak about other than what is presented before us. And it's a disrespect to this place and the people of this country.
Who are in custody of immigration officers.
Honorable member, we are not talking about immigration today. Honorable member, honorable member,
Released by a minister. Released by a minister. It is.
That he wishes to address.
Please.
He should have alerted the chair.
Oh, please.
The chair then provides that permission.
No.
But you did not do that.
In the course,
you want to again. You
in the course of all of our discussions, we address
members,
in the course of
honorable member.
don't confuse me. What are you afraid of? What is the PLP afraid of?
Honorable member.
Sit down and listen.
Honorable member, I am exerting.
Sit down and listen.
The rules.
Sit down and listen.
No, everybody sit down.
The rules, please. One rule for you and one rule for somebody else.
Members, the speaker is on her feet. Honorable member, I didn't acknowledge anybody. Allow me to speak. Please take a seat. Now, moving forward, we are here to debate the Governor General's Volunteer Society Bill. That is what I want to hear coming out of members' mouth. It's already warm in this place. I don't need us straggling all over the place. Let's speak to the bill. Let's go back to playing partisan to our rule books. And put yes.
Madam Speaker.
Honorable member, you will have an opportunity to speak to that. The press is here. If you want to speak to that, go outside and have a press release. But right now we're talking about the Governor General's Volunteer Society Bill.
That he met in place.
The member for Marco City will have to follow the rules.
He will.
We all have to follow the rules.
He will. He will follow the rule. Disrespect for this chair will not be
Every
tolerated
person
today.
in this house has talked about other matters while they're on their feet. Every member. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? What are
The
you
last
sit
time
down
we
and
sat,
listen?
honorable members, members, I am on my feet and I'm asking members to take their seat for the last time.
Rules, members. Follow the rules. Follow the rules.
And all sides abuse it, but today I am asking members to stay. Listen. Honorable members. Oh, this is the last time I am calling for members to take control. And I will tell you, I will exercise Rule 88. Rule 88. Let me put this on the floor of the House right now. Order in the House and in committee. I will exercise this rule, and if I have to persistently call for members to conduct themselves, I will exercise my right in this place. This is not the playground. This is where we come to do the business of the people.
Let me say to members of the public who may just tune in. I've addressed the issue of the bill before us. There are other matters that I wish to address on behalf of the Bahamian people and the people of Marco City. I reserve the right to do so. Every member in this House, this is not a point of order. It is not a point of order. It is not a point of order. It is not a point of order. No, it is not a point of order. And I will not yield to you.
You're misleading your constituents. You don't have to yield. No, I have not been sent anywhere. No, you are there, envoy, not me, bro. I ain't never worked for nobody. Never.
Remember, this is the last call.
That's all you
the
ever
last
do.
warning I will extend for members to take their seat. Honorable members. Okay. Let's move. Has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. As many are in favor, will remain seated. Those honorable members, this is the last time I come in the call. On the Sergeant at Arms, get ready. Because the next one who raised their voice in here, the next one who gets up out of context in here, will be going down the red carpet.
It is shameful.
Honorable member for Marco City.
It is shameful. It is shameful. Shameful.
It has been moved and seconded that the business of this House, it has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed.
Shameful.
As many are in favor,
Everyone in here has spoken on other matters. Every single member of this House.
will remain seated. Those opposed will stand.
Everyone.
Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to inspire, promote, and sustain a culture of volunteerism throughout the Bahamas.